Survival games have a very specific goal, and where they take place in has a big impact on how that goal works. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 10 survival game locations that are the toughest to survive. Starting off at number 10, Arctic Spires in Subnautica Below Zero. Now, this is primarily a game about exploring and surviving underwater, so you'd think the worst place in the game would be, somewhere below sea level, but that's actually not the case. Outside the literal out-of-bounds areas of the map, there's probably the most annoying, miserable place to try to survive in the Below Zero expansion. It's called the Arctic Spires, and it's actually a surface biome. It looks desolate and empty, but that's basically what they want you to think. Wander around here for long enough with the proper protection, and you'll get attacked by an ice worm, these giant creatures that will hound you non-stop unless you have a special item to deter them. Now, these are the main reason this area is so bad, because they will rip you to shreds, and there's nothing you can really do about it. All you can do is try to get them to stay away from you, and you never actually kill them permanently. They are unkillable enemies that burrow underground and chase you non-stop. They're hard to avoid, even in a vehicle, and that makes them an all-around headache and never fun to deal with. There are areas of the map that are technically worse than this one, but the nature of the ice worms makes this probably the most unpleasant place to visit, to say the very least. At number 9, the Wasteland. Pretty much everywhere in this game wants you dead. It's in the title. But the worst, most inhospitable region of the game has got to be the Wasteland. Taking up most of the southwestern section of the zone if you're playing the pre-made map, the Wasteland is the area hardest hit by the zombie apocalypse, and it shows. There's garbage everywhere, there's no life to be found, and the ground is littered with dangerous landmines, which would normally be enough to call this place one of the toughest places to survive in games. But we haven't even gotten into the zombies yet. Many of the toughest variants can be found just wandering around the Wasteland's abandoned cities. We're talking stuff like feral wights and demolishers, stuff that only appears normally much later in the game, but they're just hanging out here. To make matters worse, if you get caught in the Wasteland at night and you don't have any shelter or a vehicle, you might as well just say goodbye right now, because the zombies start spawning almost instantly at night and they do not let up. The Wasteland is considered an endgame area for a reason. There's a lot of useful stuff to find here, but you probably won't survive long enough to get it unless you're really prepared for the worst. At number 8 is the Dead Island in Ark Survival Evolved. There's a lot of crazy locations in a lot of the Ark Survival Evolved expansions, but for now, let's just stick with the starting island. The one most people are actually going to see. Even compared to many other survival games, Ark can be particularly brutal, with one wrong turn ending you for good. There's danger around every corner, but probably the most dangerous place of all is Dead Island, also known as Carnivore Island and sometimes as Hell Island. This charming place can be found in the far northeast corner of the map. It's a barren and miserable place without a lot to see or do besides see and then get eaten by dinosaurs. For whatever reason, it is absolutely swarming with Tyrannosaurus, Carnotaurus, and Alpha Raptors. The sea around the island isn't safe either. It is swarming with Megalodons. The whole island is basically just a non-stop death trap. The enemies are really dense, and you'll usually get swarmed as soon as you set foot in this place. And while it's a good hunting spot for high-level players, or just those with a death wish, for the rest of us, this little island may as well not really exist, because I don't know why I would ever go there. And number 7 is the ruins in Don't Starve. Generally, you're not worrying about deadly enemies as much when you're worrying about hunger and sanity in Don't Starve. So while there's plenty of dangers to be had, almost anywhere could be considered a tough place to survive if you stay there long enough. In terms of traditionally dangerous areas, however, the ruins are probably the closest thing you'll find in this game. Found by digging up a sinkhole on the surface, then finding another in the caves, the ruins are the deepest places you can explore underground and come in a variety of biomes. While you're in this place, you're under the effect of a nightmare cycle, a magical state which can trigger earthquakes and cause nightmare creatures to attack you regardless of your sanity level. The entire place, pitch black, causes your sanity to drain non-stop, and, well, that makes it a pretty miserable place to be in no matter what. That's not even mentioning the many standard enemies that will try to kill you while you're here as well. Basically, the ruins are a place you don't want to spend a lot of time in if you don't have to, because they are too dangerous to. And number 6 is Caves from the Forest. It's a game that seems pretty tranquil at first, but then you're suddenly ambushed by a swarm of crazed island cannibals, and, well, that's bad enough, but wait till you get into the caves. Oh, the caves. These areas of the forest that are pitch black and chock full of mutants. Not particularly handsome mutants as well. It wouldn't be so bad if you didn't have to go into these places, but of course you do. If you want some of the best blueprints as well as, to finish the story, well, you'll eventually have to start spelunking. The caves themselves are pretty oppressive in how realistic they sometimes feel. These places seem like they go on and have pretty confusing layouts that aren't hard to get lost in. That would be bad enough, but then, like I said, the grotesque flesh-eating monstrosities that are walking around, that makes it worse. There are few places in survival games quite as unpleasant for first-time explorers as the caves in the forest, but with enough crafting and preparation, it is possible to get through these places without a lot of difficulty. But that first time, though, it is rough. And number 5 is the Frost Caves in Valheim. Now, these were just recently added to the game, and these caves are just about as inhospitable as you can get. They are found deep in the mountains, an area that just being in will hurt you without some kind of winter protection. Just finding one of these caves can be a challenge enough, but if you do, you're gonna have to deal with some deadly cultists, some werewolves, and occasionally stone golems, because that's fun in a survival game. One of the more dangerous aspects of these caves are the vertical shafts that you sometimes have to jump over or even fall down to progress. They're easy to miss, and if you do fall down one by mistake, it does a ton of damage. It's a place that's not quite as bad as some of the previously mentioned areas, but in terms of Valheim, there's few areas that are as hostile as the Frost Caves. And number 4 is Haze in Grounded. You'd think in a game like Grounded, where you play as kids shrunken down and trapped in the backyard, this would be fairly limited about locations, but there's actually a lot of places to explore in this game. Probably the weirdest and most deadly is this one, though, simply called the Haze, a section of the map covered in nasty yellow mist, which is actually gas coming from a broken weed killer canister. Just being in this place causes you to choke and take damage, and one of the only ways to get around safely is to wear a gas mask. To make matters worse, many of the creatures that inhabit this place are infected, which for some reason causes them to explode when they get near you. There is a way to clear out the gas, but if you do, the infected creatures actually start spawning more often. So it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't thing going on in this place. You'd think a game as kid-friendly as Grounded would be a little more forgiving, but no, it just wants to kill you just as much as any other survival game. And number 3 is the Deep Dark in Minecraft. In terms of a survival game, base Minecraft's pretty forgiving for the most part. There are some dangerous places, like the Nether or the End, but that stuff has been in the game for years at this point, and people are pretty used to them. But with this most recent update, Minecraft added something that's been sorely lacking for a long time, some danger. The Deep Dark is a biome that can be found deep underground. The location alone isn't anything special, but the enemy that inhabits it is. It's called the Warden, the new toughest enemy in the game. It is actually the toughest naturally spawning enemy in the game. It has the most health, does the most melee damage of anything that is not a boss. So they're tough, but what makes them especially bad is how creepy they can be. They only spawn when you activate one of the Skulk Shriekers 3 times, and their behavior is unusual as they're naturally blind and seem to find you by sound. If you get caught, they'll chase you relentlessly, but if you're careful, it's actually possible to avoid conflict with them. Normally, the Deep Dark would just be another biome among many in Minecraft, but the addition of these wardens really make it an unpleasant place to explore. And number 2 are the lava lakes in Subnautica. The deepest and most dangerous area of Subnautica, the lava lakes are a place about as alien to human life as a place can get. The depth alone means you need the best equipment possible just to survive the plunge, but the extreme temperatures and aggressive and dangerous wildlife make it even more dangerous. See, the deeper you go in Subnautica, the more dangerous everything gets. The further you get away from your base, the less protection you have, you'll be short on resources, you'll probably get a little lost, have very little usable materials around, so there's not really much here that can actually keep you alive. If you start running out of oxygen, you're pretty much screwed because you're a long way from the surface. In all-time terms of survival games, it's not actually the worst. As long as you're well-stocked and reasonably careful, you can survive and even build a base here if you really want to. But in terms of real-world places that are about as inhospitable to human habitation, a deep underwater volcano cave, probably pretty high up there. And finally, at number 1 is the mall from Project Zomboid. Death can be incredibly sudden in Project Zomboid. It's difficult to survive pretty much everywhere in this game. Just one mishap or mistake and you're zombie food, so you mostly want to avoid large concentrations of zombies rather than seek them out. Pretty much every major city center in the game is an incredibly dangerous place to be, apartment buildings even more so, but if you want one place that's probably the all-time worst place to go when you're in a zombie apocalypse by yourself in Project Zomboid, it's gonna be the Crossroads Mall. There are a lot of things to deal with. For one, it's a place with a lot of entrances and exits, so zombies can attack you from pretty much everywhere, so it's hard to even make a little shelter for yourself if you wanted to. The place is absolutely packed with zombies, and more will keep coming. As the days pass, it seems like more and more zombies congregate at the mall. Now let me remind you, this is a game where 1 or 2 zombies can be a serious problem, so going to a place with dozens or even hundreds usually is a bad idea. There is, however, a metric ton of supplies to collect, so if you manage to get inside, you'll probably be good on food and resources for an extremely long time, but it doesn't really matter a whole lot if you're zombie food. Project Zomboid is a game where every location is tough, and the mall is somehow much worse. That's all for today. Leave us a comment, let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. The best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to enable all notifications, and as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero, and we'll see you next time right here on gameranx.